Yeah, do your push-ups, baby. Where's my... Why is this shit on the bottom of this web page? What the fuck is wrong with this? Sometimes we always problem. There's always a problem, and we have to fix it, the problem. So, welcome to the chess club of Siberia, where we play in 10 feet of snow. And the weather is only a mild minus 25 below, with a wind chill factor of 0. Otherwise, the wind would blow the chess pieces off the board. We're going to learn, hopefully, after I get normal, some basic opening theory. But there's something wrong with this. I don't know what's wrong with this purple thing on the bottom is covering up my web page, and I'm not very happy with it. There's really not a lot I can do about it, you know? Oh, there it goes. It did something. Let's see. Can I can't go to dark mode on this. Well, that shouldn't be there. What the fuck is dark mode? Alright. Let's move this thing. So, mostly in general, you can't see the wording too good. The general idea behind opening theory in chess is to gain control of the center of the board. When people start playing chess, they don't have a concept of the middle of the board. They want to play strange, unorthodox tactical moves to throw your opponent out of book. So you might ask yourself this question: what does it mean to be out of book? Well, I'll give you an example. I have no power into my house, and now the lights are off. I am out of book. I have returned to the land of the living and the warm. Now we are in book with chess openings for juniors I highly recommend this book, but I'm not selling or make any profit from any of these peoples. This is probably one of the easiest books to learn your basic chess openings from many openings. Now you can get a program like Chess Master, and it will help you with your chess opening theory only to the extent of the basic opening theory itself, not necessarily all of the ideas behind the theory. This is why we have annotation down at the bottom, and because you can't read that very well, I'll go over that. What we're going to do here, we're going to flip this board. Not that way. We want to look at the board from the perspective of the black side because we want to try to figure out the idea of white's gameplay so that we can offer a proper counter defense to white's moves. In this position, you will see that white is trying to make an attempt to attack the center of the board with his bishops on the flanking side. Generally, this is called the Fianchetto of the bishop. It is rather a rare opening play in modern chess, although it does exist. It is somewhat out of book. However, the line is called the Nimzowitz Larson attack classical variation. If we go back to the beginning of the board, we start out with e4. We start out with b3, since this reference book talks about all openings. And black may ask themselves, what is this person trying to do? He is not occupying the center of the board. We will immediately play d5. So black heads into a reversed Dutch or reversed Queen's Indian position without directly challenging white on the long diagonal. Normally, my game of play requires to play c6. If we look down at the board, let me back up a move in response to b3 and play c6.
c6.
c6 values a weight of 25. It actually allows white to realize black's potential move order from playing c6. Maybe it is a better move to play d5. Black could play e5. However, if black wants to play e6 with the idea that he wants to play the dark bishop outside of the pawn chain, he would have to play something like e6 and c5. This type of move where the white bishop stays protected inside the pawn chain and the dark bishop controls this crucial square c5 with potential attack for b6 and knight c6. No. Yeah, knight d7. Putting pressure on the c5 square. Now, this is rather advanced opening theory, and we're not really getting into the correct, proper discussion of opening theory. We are talking about an opening line and variations within the line in order to understand the reasons behind why the line is moved. This natural response strives to blunt the long diagonal and hold e5 as a strong point. Okay, that's what the book says. I like d5 better because it gives black two options to play either e6 or c6. So we're going to play the d5 line and open it up here. And black proceeds with g3, preparing to fianchetto both of his bishops, attacking the e5 and d5 squares from the diagonal of the bishops. I have a best moves window open, but you can't see it. It's preferring b4 if black plays, and then black plays knight f6. Now in this line we have black plays e5, and we're wondering if we go out of book, let's say if we put the bishop here.
Bishop.
So it's an option for black. So while white attempts to control the center of the board externally from these bishops, say for example we have bishop to g2 attacking this square, which is already protected by the queen, we could play c6 to add protection. We could play knight f6 to add protection. What if we play knight f6?
Knight f6.
How come that showed up? Was that there before? Okay, so that's an option.
Knight f6.
And then the gameplay stops with either queen d7 being the best move. Which is strange. I wouldn't know why that move is played, because it blocks in the light-colored bishop. I don't particularly like this line of play, it seems. I don't know why. If we were to play
e6.
this move, this is an idea of defense called the French defense. Now, the Caro-Kann defense, which is c6 instead of e6, allows for transpositioning to the French defense. You could transfer from the French to the Caro-Kann if moves were played later in the game, and I'm falling asleep. But this move blocks in the light-squared bishop, which is a problem for black. With the idea of c6, you see that black's pawns are on light-colored squares. The discussion of my opening theory, which is a deep, dark secret, involves keeping a good bishop while trading off the bad bishop. To remember which is the good and which is the bad, always remember that the bishop that you want to keep, the bishop, always remember that your opponent's bishop wants to be not the color of your pawns. So if your pawns are on light-colored squares, then you want to eliminate your opponent's light-colored bishop, because the light-colored bishop can attack the pawns. So if we trade that bishop off, and we have our light-colored bishop in this case is the bad bishop, because the light-squared pawns restrict the light bishop's movement. So we're actually trading a good bishop here for a bad bishop. We don't want to, our good bishop is the dark bishop. We don't want that. So we can't trade our bad bishop for the opponent's good bishop. we have to trade it with a knight or something. So maybe with this idea, we could try this.
Bishop b2. Knight f6.
Now the queen also protects the knight, so if the bishop should come down and attack the knight, the queen could go over. It's not such a big deal. We are looking at this opening play with the perspective of Black's point of view in order to build up our defensive line no matter what White plays. White can play any move that it wants. We will always play the same defensive line as Black. That line being putting our pawns on the appropriate colored squares in order to effect the existence of a good bishop. Now, to do this, we could play c6 and e5. Then we can get rid of our light-squared bishop in a trade. And I have seen many, many games play to trade that light-squared bishop, where White plays to e3, Black plays the bishop here to f5, and then White plays the light-squared bishop here, and I've seen this exchange of bishops. Now, these are from relatively good players, and that trade is not good for White in the endgame. So the problem is that your opponent in most games up through Class A will try to eliminate you during the middle game. And your object is to get through the middle game and start playing the end game. It's not so easy to do when you're half asleep and it's 40 degrees in your house and you want to go to sleep. Type of thing. Yeah, I'm very tired, which is a good thing. So again, I'm wanting to stress good bishops and bad bishops is the most important line of opening theory repertoire. Nothing else in this game of chess makes any difference. You must maintain a good bishop throughout the game so that you can get into a position of being better than your opponent by having a good bishop and your opponent not having a good bishop. So don't think in terms of your opponent having a good bishop, okay? Either think one way or the other. Either think of how your opponent's bishop is that you want, or think of how you want your bishop to be, and everything else will fall into place. So in this situation, we can see that the pawns are going to be on light-colored square. The light bishop is going to be our bad bishop. So we will want to trade off our bad bishop. Now, 9 times out of 10, your opponent will not know this theory. Guaranteed. Okay? Because they will want to eliminate you in the middle game with excessive tactical play. Do not be discouraged, because I live in Siberia, and I'm telling you right now that you will win every time as long as you keep a good bishop on the board. Huh? All right, so we played knight f6, and then we don't really have a response. So maybe White plays
Bishop g2
of the bishop. Now, it seems now that this opening reference book is actually adding moves to the opening, and then we could make some annotation here to talk about why we made the move, and then we've got our own opening book theory. However, Chess Master is only to be used for studying opening book theory, to study basic opening book theory only out to about 2 or 3 moves. And the reason for that is to see the beginning of the idea of tactical play. What is your opponent's plan? What is your plan? And again, 9 times out of 10, your plan is going to be based on how your opponent plays their pieces. If you play with this in mind, you will be able to develop your plan on the fly, again with the premise and the idea that you will have the better bishop in the endgame. This is the most important aspect of chess. If anything I tell you, keep a good bishop on the board. Now, the exception to the rule is that if your opponent decides he likes both of his knights on the board, maybe he trades off his bishops. The knights can go anywhere on the board. The bishops can only stay on the color that the bishop is on. It is a diagonal play. It's a diagonal play piece. And I am wicked tired. I'm just falling asleep in my chair. But I wanted to do this basic opening theory stream. Now, we could continue with black plays c5, which is better than c6. We can also play with the idea that we are going to eliminate the c6 pawn, move the bishop to, say, d7, and play the rook on the c-file. This is the general idea of all of black's play. This is why I am telling you in the beginning of your chess theory openings, play the moves that I described to you here, and you will have an excellent chance of either equalizing the game or winning the game or drawing the game. If you play obscure, unorthodox responses, for example, if I was to play my knights out to, say, for example, if I played this knight here to c6, that would block the c6 pawn and ruin my opening plan theory, which is to move the rook on the c-file to push this pawn ahead and gain some momentum, make some space, have attacking opportunities with getting rid of that pawn, so you can get your rook on the c-file. And I can't stress this enough. Stay with my opening defensive line of play. It is called the Cardigan Defense, Transpositions to French Defense, and do not play g6. Do not play c5. So we could play c6 here and play an entirely defensive game working on our bad bishop. However, if we play c6, we might say that our knight has no place to move. If we move our bishop to d7, then the knight has no place to move. It becomes a problem for black. One of his pieces can't develop. So you could say to yourself, maybe I will learn a defensive structure so that whatever black does, I can recoup my space. I can get a point back for trading pawns, trading pieces, all that kind of stuff. Honestly, I don't know what this line is right here.
C5.
C5. I think it's a good line for black, not necessarily with these Fianchetto bishops. It's definitely a line. We've got white knight c3, queen e7, bishop captures f6. So if black would have moved the queen here, and then white plays bishop captures f6 here. But I'm getting so tired. I'm cold. I wanted to get through this, you know. Basic opening play requires attempts to control the center of the board. These four squares and squares outside of those 4 squares. I don't know. Now you look at this position. Now when you see it from here, you know, this is where maybe you're out of the book and maybe you're going to start doing some tactical stuff here, like maybe just play that.
E4.
Which is not a good move, because that's a free pawn. I can't get into the rest of this theory. Now, let's go back to black. I'm going to go over my theory, okay? So we start out with e4. Then we go c6.
C6.
d5.
D4. D5.
Now black has some choices. And there's really not that many choices. Or white has choices. Black can play the advanced variation of the Cardigan, which is this move.
E5.
Or the exchange variation.
E takes D5.
Which here it seems to be called the Panov-Botvinnik attack. I'm going to fall asleep on stream. I am so tired. And I slept this afternoon. Oh, I can't even keep my eyes open. And my hat is itching my head. What else we got here? Yeah, there's some annotation here. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, honestly. You know? I'm going to go back to the root, and I'm going to flip the board. I'm going to show you some quick mates, like strange mates.
E4. F6. Knight C3. G5. Queen H5.
So this
checkmate.
is a checkmate. Why black decides to play these moves, who knows? It's the quickest mate in chess history, I think. I think it's called a fool's mate. I don't know. One of the other better well-known moves.
E4. E5. Bishop C4.
Bishop's opening is an attempt to capitalize on the inherent weakness of f7, but centuries of analysis have shown that this natural move is no stronger when played earlier than later. Let's say that black kind of blunders
Knight
his moves.
c6.
White brings out the queen. Now, here,
Queen.
if white was to play the queen on the outside, it's more obvious to see that the bishop and the queen are attacking the square with the threat of mate. And I don't remember what I just said. Or white can play
Queen
this move,
f3.
which is a little bit more conservative. It's less noticeable. Now black can simply just play the knight.
Knight.
And, you know, white's wasted moves on his queen to bring the queen out there.
Queen f3.
So if you see it from black's perspective, you can see how the bishop attacks this pawn. I am just falling asleep, I swear to God. Let's go back to the root. I'm going to show you what's called the four knights game. Well, there's a
E4.
Lopez.
e5. Knight f3. Knight c6. Bishop
Now,
b5.
this type of pin with the knight against the king is an indirect pin because the pawn's behind the knight. But if black moves the pawn ahead, white can exchange the knight, you know. You notice, keep remembering that this knight on f3 and so on, and there's some other moves in there. Let's play the four knights game.
e4.
This
e5.
is like a copycat move. If white
Knight
plays
f3.
the knight on one side, black plays the knight on the other
Knight
side
c6.
to keep things balanced.
Knight c3. Knight f6.
I don't know if I'm going to make it through this because my house is so cold it's put me to sleep. I forgot what the heck I was doing here. I can't get through this very well. Now, let's flip the board again. We're going to talk about an unorthodox gameplay that a lot of beginner students will play. So let's say that white plays this move.
a4.
White's idea is to play the outside pawns and bring the rooks out. Let's play our normal gameplay.
d5. Rook a3. c6. h4. Bishop f5. Rook e6. g4. Bishop h5. Bishop e4. f3.
Well, I guess I missed that somewhere down the line, didn't I?
Bishop G4. F3. Bishop H5. G4. Bishop G6. H5.
I'm sorry, I'm falling asleep. So with this H4, white has this advantage. Oh wait, did I do something wrong here? Wait, hold the fort here. In this particular line, with white's idea of moving the rooks out, white is not aware that rooks are worth more than bishops are. So, in this case, you would want to trade your bishop. Whether
Bishop
it's a
takes
good bishop or a
H3.
bad bishop, it doesn't matter. Trade your bishop for the rook.
G
now,
takes
white's
H3.
got doubled pawns, which is not good. And they're on the outside of the board. Again, not good. So there's two things that are not good for black. I mean for white.
E5.
So now white would just continue with really good development here. And not necessarily worry about much of anything, really.
Bishop G2. Knight D7. Knight F3.
Oh, look.
Bishop takes A3. B takes A3.
So somewhere along the opening line, you've got to look out for bishops taking those rooks when that rook comes out. Wait a minute. I see he did this. Let's go back here. Let's move the rook. Let's see.
Rook F3.
Just
E4.
harass the rook.
Rook F4. Knight F6. D3. E takes D3. E takes D3. Bishop E7.
So now what we're doing is we're almost into the middle game. We're starting to get into unorthodox play where now the game surrounds tactics. Black can still maintain a good bishop in the game. This is absolutely essential. And white can do whatever he wants, whatever his plan is. So you're looking out for white's plan, and you're setting up a good defensive posture for your pieces.
Knight C3. Knight B
Now
D7.
this idea about castling. Let's put this bishop here.
Bishop E2.
Put this queen here.
Queen C7.
Maybe.
Bishop E3.
So now black can either castle short or castle kingside like this, or castle long, which is castle queenside. Generally speaking, you don't want to trade rooks and bishops, okay? If the opponent's rook is offered and your bishop's attacking that square, you want to make that trade. Get your opponent's rook off the board with your bishop. Now we're going to go into the actual Cardigan defense, which is C6.
C6. D4. D5.
Now I've seen most people play the advanced variation.
E5.
So the idea is to get this bishop out. We could play here or we could play here. Either way.
Bishop.
I'm not going to be able... Okay, so now we play... Maybe we don't... We'll see if we don't trade the bishops. Oh, wait a minute. That's attacking the queen. Wait, something's wrong here. I can't put the bishop on that square because the queen could take the bishop. So this is what's played here.
Bishop F5. Knight F3. E6. Bishop E2. Bishop E7. Bishop G5.
Now another tactic, we're not really discussing tactics. We're sort of discussing the idea of endgame tactics with the idea of playing the opening that's geared towards your endgame, which in both cases for white and black is to maintain a good bishop. So here, black is trying to trade, white is trying to trade its good bishop, its bad bishop, which cannot attack the pawns on the light square, for black's good bishop, which can attack white's dark squared pawns. So we don't want that. So what happens if we play this?
F6. E. Knight takes F6. Knight C3. Castle kingside.
Now we've got good protection on this F file, which is a similar idea to playing protection for the C file. I don't necessarily like to castle. And in fact, I probably wouldn't even play that pawn exchange, because what it does, well, I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but it opens up here. I don't really like that line. But we gotta do something though. We could play check. How would lose our queen. Wow. I'm thinking the appropriate move is F6.
F6.
I don't know. I'd have to analyze it with Fritz. Let's say that black plays... White plays
D4. D5. Knight F3. C6. E3.
You know, I don't know the theory. I have to go in the book. This is called a Grunfeld reversed. White could play here.
Bishop G4. Bishop E2.
Now see, this is typical, and white says, "Okay, I'll trade my light squared bishop," which is actually white's good bishop. Remember? Then you can play. Well, the knight comes out. But see how the knight is messed up here? I have to go into my lines. I've got to go into my notes and everything else. It's crazy, you know? Just remember that your black position looks like
E6.
this. Light squared pawns. Get rid of the light squared bishop. Keep the good dark bishop. Play your game from there. You want to play
Knight
C3.
C3.
Well, you could play this
C5.
because the bishop's, you know, she's doing her thing down here. I'm falling asleep. Fuck. I wanna go back to the root. I gotta stop playing. So, flip the board again. Now, from White's perspective, okay. I've talked about e-pawn moves
E4.
and bringing the knights out, you know, that kind of thing. We are not going to play White as any king pawn openings. We are always going to play queen pawn.
D4.
Black's not always going to play the Cardigan defense.
D5. Knight F3. Knight C6.
We play the bishop out here.
Bishop F4. Knight F6. E3. E6.
Now it looks like, okay, now we've got White can play this bishop. So now White's bad bishop is the dark squared bishop. So you remember from your point of view, and White's good bishop is the light square. So in this game, which is called the London system, the best move is bishop to
Bishop
E2. Like
E2.
this.
Bishop
That's the
E7.
best move. Now White can play a queen's gambit
C4.
type of game like this.
Castle kingside.
Maybe
C5.
advance, or
C5.
I'm just so freaking tired. It's not funny.
Bishop D7. B4.
So what this is doing, it's putting pressure on a queen side. So the London system possibly works on a queen side attack. But actually, the bishop on E2 is actually working toward a king side attack because black is already committed to castling on this side of the board. White has not committed to castle at this point, and the reason for that is White wants to play for the good endgame and keep the king in the center of the board where it's most powerful. So that's your tip and that's your idea for White. Now there's a chess player by the name of Danny Kopek. Now I think he played
D4.
the king move, but I don't
D5.
freaking remember.
Bishop F4. Knight C6.
Oh, falling asleep, fuck.
E3. E6. C3.
Now, White has also played, like, before this move here, White could play H3. Let me go back.
D4. D5.
Now, I've seen H3 played immediately.
H3.
Maybe that's not a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a wasted move. There's a trap in there for white. White can get into a
D4,
trap and lose a
D5,
piece. And I don't remember exactly
Bishop
what that
F4,
is. It's the do not fall asleep trap.
E6,
That's what I'm doing. I'm falling asleep. Fuck, I made a bad move. Shit.
D4, D5, Bishop
When
F4,
black plays this move.
Bishop F5,
I haven't seen this before.
D4, D5, Bishop F4,
Well, instead of the London system, it's calling it the Surratt attack. So that's different. If we go back, play this.
Bishop G5,
Here it's called Levitsky. However, another name is called Trompowsky. So there's the London system, and Trompowsky are the modern names, and maybe the Surratt and Levitsky are older names, which is something we could research later on.
D4, D5, Bishop F4, Bishop F5, E3, E6, G3, C5, C3, Knight C6.
Now again, notice white's pawns on dark colored squares. This particular opening, there's another name for it, and I don't remember like exactly what it is. It's got some problems. There's some tactical problems with this. This is an opening by Danny Kopek. But I don't remember exactly if that's his line of play. It could be.
Bishop G2, G5, Bishop E5, Knight takes D takes E5.
Now, maybe black's got a better position. Black's got some space over here. All the king's exposed. White's got a good bishop. So, again, my opening theory tells you to keep a good bishop on the board and play these lines. Play d4 as white. And then if you're black,
E4, C6, D4, D5, E takes D5, Bishop F5,
bishop on the outside of the board. Could play this.
G4, Bishop G6, H4, H6, H5, Bishop H7.
Now, I don't know how many moves this is, like 5, 6 moves. This is where you go into Fritz and you analyze the position. You remember this position, you know what's happening, all that kind of good stuff, you know.
D takes C6, Knight takes C6, Bishop B5, E6.
Now here, maybe, oh, there's a check here.
Queen A5 check. Knight C3.
I'm just going to play something stupid here.
Castle queenside.
So, black's got some good play. The bishop's blocked in. Not all that great.
Bishop D2.
And I'm totally fucking
E6.
tired.
Knight E4.
Oh, that leaves the bishop free, doesn't it?
Bishop takes C6. B takes C6.
Now it's changed back. Now white's got a better position because black's king's exposed. There's an open pawn here. So, again, I guess I think I'm almost done. I think I'm done. I was just going to go over in this book, but it's too cold because I don't have heat right now. And I can't see anything anyway. I'll have to do it in the daytime. But this book, it talks about 2 or 3 variations. It goes into about 10 moves on each of the variations. This is the book we're going to start. We're going to start with Chess Openings for Juniors by J.N. Walker, Cardigan. Highly recommend the book. Please think about getting it. If you're, a beginning chess player. The more advanced openings books are these. The Complete Chess Course, which is a hardbound book. It goes into more detail. The letters are nice and big. They're easy to read. Very good book. Highly recommend it. Then we've got I've got Nuns. There's a book down here way at the bottom. I don't know if I can get to it. I'll probably have a fucking disaster. There's this book here, which the words are the words are smaller. It's difficult to read. There's a learning process. The Sicilian Defense is in here. It goes through all the variations. I don't know if I can, I'll just show you. You can't really see it that well, but it shows you those are the variations right there. They're all in a table form, and it discusses on the bottom, like it'll go through all these variations, and you've got to line up the variation number with the number that's in the discussion. This would be, I would go to this book. This is called Modern Chess Openings Completely Revised, 14th edition, by Nick DeFermian, United States chess champion. It does have the London system in here, I think. It's got some of the transpositions. So that's actually the other thing I should probably discuss. It's called Transpositional Play. It's a little bit more advanced, but I think it's a good idea to go into it. I'll go over this once more with black. So let's say white plays here.
D4, D5,
here.
E4,
say here.
E6,
Here,
E takes D5, E takes D5,
Here.
knight
and here.
C6.
Now black has well, it's even, whatever. Black still has the Cardigan position, but here it says this is called the Blackmart Gambit. All of these openings for black revolve around the D pawn, the E pawn, and the C pawn. And the move that you will not play as black under any circumstances
E4,
is the E pawn. You will
E5,
not play that move. You will not play C5.
C5,
You will not play king pawn defenses. You will not play C5 Sicilian defense. Do not play this line until you learn my repertoire, because I haven't even got that far. And I've been playing chess for hundreds of hours. If you learn the C6 Cardigan line, you will go a long ways to playing chess. Trust me.
E4,
Now, if we can do something like this,
D5,
let's say, and this,
D3,
and let's say we do this,
C6,
and then this, let's say this happens.
Bishop E2,
Let's say that black plays
E6,
this, and we've got this.
knight C3,
Transpositional play could be this pawn captures. Well, let's play this knight out.
knight
Let's say this
F6,
pawn captures.
E
Okay?
takes D5.
So now black can play either this way or this way. So transpositional play is you're playing against your opponent's moves such that you are getting into a game that you're familiar with. So if I play this,
C
maybe
takes
that's a
D5.
transposition from the French defense. Here it's called center counter game. Well, we don't really care about the opening names as much as we care about transpositions between games. And the most important transposition is the Cardigan to the French defense. And maybe we can actually, I can look that up and talk about that at some point, but I'm not going to be able to do it that much because it's just so cold in my house. And the reason for talking about that is because the tactics and the lines, the variations are not that complicated. There's not that many of them. You don't do
Knight
you don't Fianchetto
F3,
bishops, okay? You
G6.
don't Fianchetto bishops. I mean, you could.
B3,
You know?
Bishop G7, Bishop
This is very
B2,
tactical gameplay. It involves a lot of thinking ahead moves, etc., etc., etc. The patterns become unrecognizable. The idea of the gameplay is completely wrong because you're offering to trade your good bishop for white's So that's why I get confused. You've got to take off white's good bishop, which is here. So you're trading your good bishop for white's bad bishop. Okay? I don't know how if that works, if that comes up in Sicilian defenses, but you don't want to do that as black. So playing this G-pawn, don't even think about it. Just don't play these stupid defenses. It's ridiculous.
E4,
Now, if the king pawn is played, you can play C6.
C6,
You know, like this.
D4,
Then you're right into the
D5,
Cardigan defense.
E5, Bishop
Very easy to
F5,
remember. Very
Knight
easy to play.
F3, E6,
White could just, you know, keep going with some strange moves.
Bishop E3,
So this is how you would go into these openings with Fritz. Fritz is the other game program that we talked about.
Knight D7,
Now the idea for black,
Bishop
now black
E2,
can play C6,
C5,
And let's just say this.
D takes c5.
Now, this is black's good bishop. So we could take this pawn and trade bishops, but then we'd lose a good bishop, wouldn't we? So play this.
Knight takes c5.
Maybe play... yeah, I don't know what to play.
c3.
I don't know what to play. I don't know what to play here. I could attack that pawn. But, you know,
Queen
the idea
d7.
behind the advanced is it's restricting black's knight to play f6. And then, you know, by doing this with the knight, this bishop's restricted. If it plays here, the knight can't play out, etc. The idea behind the long castle is not the idea because you want to play c6, the rook over.
a3. Rook c8.
You know, maybe, let's go over it again. I'm going to freeze my ass off tonight.
e4. c6. d4. d5. Knight f3. Bishop g4. Bishop
Now you're offering to trade your bad bishop for white's good bishop. Let's say he doesn't know any better,
e6.
you know.
e5.
Now here, we want to get the dark bishop on the outside. We want a castle on the king side. Now see, I don't know. I don't know. Black's idea is to play this knight over here.
Knight d7. a3.
And advance the c pawn. Because now the c5 square is protected. And he can play that
c5.
move. Now if white decides to do that,
b4.
it's too late. Okay, he's got this pawn.
C takes d4. Knight
Now white
takes
has a pawn out
d4.
here with the idea that white's going to move this piece here.
Bishop takes e2. Queen takes e2.
So white, now white
Bishop
looks like
c5.
black's bishop is still restricted here, isn't it? Uh-oh, shit. So maybe black has to make two moves, which is really not
Knight
good for black.
e7. Castle kingside. Knight
Not
c6.
good. So if white plays into black's hand,
Knight takes c6.
Like
b
this.
takes.
I think black's game is better.
Bishop f4. Queen c7. Knight
It's not the best
c3.
move.
Bishop
You know,
e7.
black's positional play is too slow because it's moved this knight twice, and this bishop's only out to here. That's the good bishop, by the way. These are all things you got to look at when you're getting into the middle game. And you're doing this by playing on Fritz and using the books, which we will go through. We will go through the books for the Cardigan Defense and look at the variations and the comments, and that's how we will learn all of the defenses for black, because I didn't show you so I got some other books here that are more geared. These are thinner books. So there's this one. Now this one says beating the Cardigan advanced variation. So this is all of the stuff that we need to go through in order to see how white will win against the Cardigan variation. And we're going to do this. This is all put on Fritz with commentary and Fritz Analysis, this book right here. Before we get to that book, we go through chess openings for juniors and see how far that goes and talk about it. We also get into the Slav defense, which is another, this is a defense against white, and we can transpose into the Slav defense, which we will learn. Then we've got the Cardigan in black and white by Anatoly Karpov, which is this book here. This is a very good book. You know, it's a good book. Well, actually, it's got a lot. It's got a shitload of stuff in here. A lot of stuff. It talks about lines too, I guess. The classical system. Like, for example, here's an example opening. Out of the Cardigan book. So we play e4.
E4. C6.
D4.
D4. D5.
Now, normally white plays this advanced variation. Now we have knight to e3.
Knight c3.
Oh, wait a minute. That's not correct. Wait, what? There must be a C.
Knight c3.
So this is if this pawn takes here, the knight comes back and takes it. So you get D captures.
D takes E. Knight takes E4.
Knight captures, and bishop to F5.
Bishop
Like
G4.
this. So then it goes into, it discusses, it talks about it. Then it looks like it goes into a game. And we could, let me see if I can read this. In the classical system, you probably hope you can't see this. In the classical system, black immediately solves the problem of developing his queen's bishop, which is our bad bishop. But he is forced into a variation which leads to the fixing of his king side. This allows white to organize a long-term positional bind. In modern practice, while white almost always chooses the variation which drives back the black bishop and then exchanges it. Exchanging the black bishop. So white wants to exchange the good bishop, you see? So there's a line here. Therefore, the following pawn structure occurs, and it shows a pawn structure which is not really conducive to a good bishop on either side, because there's pawns on light and dark squares. The h5 pawn blockade and the g7 and h6 pawns, and thus partially paralyzes the black king side. This is especially meaningful in the endgame. In addition, white controls the e5 square and plans to establish a knight, in rarer cases another piece there on e5. If black exchanges one on e5, a pawn replaces the piece, and the paralyzing effect of the e5 and h5 pawns strengthen. Black usually tries to break out with c6 to c5, and by means of counterplay along the d-file to neutralize the action of white's centralized pieces. In some cases, the h5 pawn disconnected from white's base of operations and may become a target for an attack. So Let's look at this line and see what happens here. I can hardly see the damn thing. Knight g3, bishop g6. So you got knight g3. What the fuck? How the hell? Bishop, knight captures e4, knight c3. Oh, that knight moves back right here.
Knight
That's
g3.
an opening. I vaguely recall this. Bishop to g6, h4, h6. Shit. What? Knight to g3, bishop to g6. How the hell is the bishop going to go to g6? Oh, I made a mistake. After knight captures, bishop goes to f5. Here.
Bishop f5.
That's attacking a loose knight. Then we've got this move.
Knight g3.
Then we've got this
Bishop
move.
g6.
Then we've got this.
h4. h6.
This. So white can move this pawn and pressure that bishop. Knight to d7, h5. Knight to d7. Knight to d7. Here.
h5. Bishop h7.
Bishop to h7, bishop to d3.
Bishop d3.
Bishop captures, queen captures, and e6. So now I don't remember what I did in the beginning here. This is the classical variation where black exchanged on that e square. Now black can offer the exchange.
Bishop takes d3
to develop.
Queen takes d3 e6. Bishop
There's
f4.
a game that it shows, you know, you could trade bishops here, but the problem with this line, see, there's already two squares on dark squares here, two pawns on dark squares. 3 is another one here. You know, that exchange variation, I don't like it. And I'd have to look at my notes on Fritz, because I have notes. So that's the idea behind learning your openings. Now, when we go into the openings, we can see if we can find the opening in a book, and then we continue. Or, you know, there's games here. We might have these games in opening books on the computer. So then we've got the complete defense to king pawn openings. And then we've got black defensive system for the rest of your chess career. So what exactly is that, you know? What's he got going here? I don't even recall if I've even been in this book, because I just, you know, this is the one time I'm going to teach chess. It will be the only time, because I'm going to go through these books very quickly, since I've explained to you the general premise and idea of how I want to teach. Again, lastly and finally, it's the idea of having a good bishop in the endgame. So all of the lines that we look at, we want to transposition our pieces and our pawns to leave ourselves with a good bishop for white or black, no matter, you know. I mean, there's this red book here. What is this? Aside from the Cardigan, I don't know what this book has in it. This is something I would have to go into. It looks like it has openings and variations at the beginning. I can't see the words. So yeah, it has part 1, part 2, part 3, and illustrative games. So part 1 is E4, C6 lines. Part 2 is D4, D5 lines. Which has a transposition. The other one had a transposition too. And then there's other first opening moves by white. Knight F3, E4, B3, and so on. So this is a good book. There's a lot in here, and you know we could go over this whole book. We could go over the lines in this book here up to a point where we do not see the defensive posture for black's good bishop. If black's good bishop is not in any of these lines that we try to work on, we will not follow that line and continue on with the rest of the book. For example, let's see. Here's a position with black's got 2 bishops and white pawns, which looks pretty good and is ready to attack in the center. White has 2 bishops with a good bishop way in the back looking at a knight. So there's a potential to trade bishops there for black. So black has a plan in that one. You know, there's things like that. Here's one. The black's got an open board, open bishops. It's black's got a Fianchetto bishop, which is black's good bishop. I think black's good bishop has got to be protected better. You know, keep it in reserve for your endgame, and that's the whole idea behind that. You know, I think I'm done. I can't think of anything else. There's obscure openings. We'll just do this one obscure opening. It's English or something. I don't know what it's called. Let's see.
B3.
Nimzowitz, Larson attack. Yeah, we did that, didn't we? We could immediately have played this.
D5. Bishop B2. C6.
Let's play this.
E4.
Oh, you know, that prevents... I can't bring that bishop out with this. Why can't I bring this bishop out? What did I do wrong? Alright, so in this line, I had to play this bishop out
Bishop
first.
F5.
You see, the move order is important, okay? It's important. So now, white can't even push this pawn right here. In order to push that pawn, he's got to develop the knight in front of his bishop. And we were talking about getting this dark bishop out, you know. It's a screwed up line for white. I don't know. But still, let's see if we did play this.
Knight c3, c6.
White only has one piece attacking the square. Black's got two pieces defending. It's a free pawn for black.
h3.
I like that idea, but...
e6. g4. Bishop g6. h4.
This is a typical move order that young
h6.
kid students might try to do.
h5. Bishop.
So you're all ready for it. Granted, you got two pawns on dark squares, but if you play...
Knight f3.
You could play something like this, but the whole idea is to attack c5. So you want to do this.
Knight d7. d4. c5.
Attack it with impunity,
d takes c5.
So you want to bring your bishop out.
Bishop takes c5.
Bring the bishop out.
a3.
So white tries to do this.
Knight e7. b4.
Well, black could come back here to the middle, I suppose. No, he'd be attacked here. So he's going to go here.
Bishop b6.
White just continues to do this.
a4.
This bullshit.
a6. a5. Bishop a7.
Now we've got all our pawns on light squares. So we say that our light squared bishop is the bad bishop that we want to get rid of. And we want to keep the dark bishop because white's pawns are all going to end up on dark squares. That's the whole premise behind that game. Get it? Got it? Done. I'm going to save the layout. Maybe or maybe not. Let's see if it saves. Openings. Let's see if it saved it. Oh, it did. It actually saved it this time. All right. That's the end of that stream. So the next stream, we've gone over basic opening play. The whole idea, again, keep a good bishop and trade your bad bishop for your opponent's good bishop and get into the end game. In the openings, we will learn about how to maintain the good bishop for your side, and we will play whatever defensive or offensive line we need to play in order to manifest a good bishop for our endgame. It can be done, it has to be done, it will be done. So let it be written, so let it be done. Rooks are generally worth more than bishops. Trade your bishops for the rooks. In either case, some people like to play exclusively with knights. When you notice this on your opponent's gameplay, your object is going to be to open up the board by getting rid of pawns so that your bishop has more range and your knights really don't have nothing to do. If you have a closed position, meaning your pawns are all locked up and they can't move anywhere, your opponent with two knights will wipe you off the board, plain and simple. And there's nothing you can do about it. Trust me, I know, because I played against someone back in the day who, that's all he liked. He said he liked his knights, and he knew how to play them. There are many ideas. For example, putting a knight on diagonal with a pawn, so that if the knight is exchanged, the pawn is moved ahead, and so on and so forth. So again, our next mission will be to go through a book, maybe that red one that we just looked at, and look for opening play that allows us to maintain a good bishop towards the end of the game. And with that, I will say have a good time playing chess, and may the chess luck be with you, because it sure isn't with me half the time.